You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is Leahi Komer, the owner of Leahi Swim School.
So what did you do to do your marketing and gain credibility then? Especially if you're a college student.
It's amazing. My husband and I started, because we didn't have an advertising budget, we started putting flyers on cars at Ala Moana Center and Kahala Mall. This is back when you could do that, and down at Kapiolani Park, because that's where we were located. And there's a lot of kids going to the beach down there. We figured, let's paper the cars. That's how we started.
Did it work?
It did. My first summer I had 40 kids, which is, we didn't advertise in the newspaper.
At that point, it was you and how many other instructors?
Just my husband.
Okay.
I didn't start hiring instructors for a couple of years.
Okay.
And then I hired one, and then the next summer I hired two.
Was that because you were getting overloaded? And it was
everybody wanted swimming lessons from 10 to 2 in the afternoon, and I could only teach so many lessons. And so when you start turning away business because you can't clone yourself, that's when you start hiring. And what was so interesting was the people I was hiring were older than I was. They were, I hired experienced swim teachers. And what was interesting about that, I found it very difficult to train my experienced swim teachers my method, because they had their own method. They were already set, this is the way I teach. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start training people who've just freshly come out of a Red Cross, life-saving course.
How long did it take you to come to that realization?
About 2 summers.
Okay.
I got some doozies. I got some people who, they were patient up to a point, and when a child didn't do it at, the normal progression of a swimming lesson, when a child, refused to do the exercise, they'd lose it. And you don't want that teacher around. And those teachers didn't work for me after that. You don't lose it at my swim school. You keep your patience and have fun the whole time.
Well, especially when teaching children, patience is definitely important. So how old were you when you first hired your first employee?
I was probably about 28 years old.
Was it hard for you to manage them? Did you have management experience before at all?
I didn't, but I figured that what I was looking for was personality. And so when I hired someone, I basically looked for someone I could get along with and who would take direction from me. Someone who would listen to what I had to say and do it. And that's basically what I look for. And of course, they had the swimming, at first they had all the swimming credentials and, and all that stuff. But I found that I could train them just as good as, or better than the Red Cross could.
How long did it take to train each one? Up to where you say, okay, this is a good teacher.
Usually it takes about a year. So what I do is when they're in training, they're also assistant teachers. So they learn by doing. They're in the pool with the kids. Right next, they apprentice right next to a senior seasoned teacher. I find that's the best. I can give them manuals. I can give them lesson plans. They can read it. They watch videos. And when it all boils down to, you got to get them in the water.
Hands-on
one-on-one,
experience.
hands-on.
And how do you find these people that, you could work with? They're pretty young adults, but they're not teenagers. They're, young adults.
Well, I first started putting an ad in the paper. That, you get everybody. Right. I can teach swimming. Everybody who doesn't have a job thinks they can teach swimming. Easy. I can swim, I soon found that didn't work. It's all word of mouth now. I have my parents. I always tell my parents, that babysitter that you have that's wonderful with kids, send them down to me. Of course, they all have to have a swimming background, and they have to know how to swim all the strokes. But they don't necessarily have to be competitive swimmers or water polo players, although most of my people are. So it's my parents. Now that I have such a large group of elder teens and young adults, I get them to bring in their friends. And what I say is that, I'm looking for a few teachers to train to come in. And, of course, I don't want your friends that need the job. I want your friends that are going to fit in here. So don't bring those kids in. I want, you know what I'm looking for, as you can look around, okay? And I'm looking for those people. And I haven't advertised for the last 10 years.
How long does the average swimming teacher stay with your program then?
I would say I usually get them when they're about 16, 17. They're like juniors in high school, and then I usually keep them right through college.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a guaranteed job. They go off to college. They either work for me on the weekend or after school, so they have kind of a part-time job going. Or if they go to the mainland, they know when they come back, they have that job. They just tell me their schedule, and I sign them up.
That's good for everyone then.
Yeah, everybody really wins with this. You know, I have one of my teachers is a high school coach out at Campbell High School, and he teaches for me on Saturdays just because he loves doing it. He's such a good teacher too. And then I have another teacher who flies for Aloha Airlines. She's a pilot. And then I have another teacher who works for Aloha, who works for me part-time too.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more on Greater Good Radio.